Hello everybody, welcome back to Facing the Party. I'm Ricky, your host as always, to talk about everything RP and not rules related with tabletop adventures and Dungeons & Dragons. Who do I have with me today?
Still Kyle.
Oh, so I was going to say that was Kyle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I ruined it.
Well, who's the
Hi,
other
everybody.
person?
Allison.
Oh, yeah, it's me.
There we go.
It's me.
That
Who would
was
have guessed that it was me again?
The most complicated introduction people on a podcast ever.
I'm Douglas David.
Oh,
I'm
no,
David
no.
David.
No. I've been down this road. Anyways, today we have tips for new D&D players, especially in forming characters that fit with the story and party members that you're going to be playing with, aka we're getting out of the vacuum and we're playing in the real make-believe world now. And then later on in the episode, we're also going to be talking about how new GMs can really get into the RP mood and how to really set times for RP to happen and how to encourage RP with their players. So let's get started. First off, for new D&D players, you gotta play an adventurer. For most campaigns, especially when you're new to the game, you are going to be adventuring.
So you just mean like playing somebody that actually wants to be on the adventure, right?
The big thing I'm always thinking that needs to be asked about a character is, why am I risking my life?
Yeah, that's fair.
Adventurer is a job in D&D world,
Right.
with not a very good survival rate and not the most phenomenal pay. So, like, I mean, sometimes great pay.
Of, one of my favorite Ianisms when we first started Pathfinder is there's a skill called profession. But he always said, don't worry about profession because the best profession is killing people and taking their stuff.
This is true.
There's no point in having the profession skill.
You can have very shallow reasons to why you're risking your life. Honestly, just the money motivations are fine. Those are great. Every rogue that's grown up on the streets and needs money to survive.
Yeah.
So I started utilizing my skills. And I'm a very quiet man. And I talk like this. And I hold my S's because I am Donnie the Snake.
Oh my god. Wow.
Like, that's...
Is this an adventure?
This is an adventure. Every day is an adventure with you guys. But I think that everybody needs a motivation. You need to be an adventurer.
Yeah.
Like, if the...
have a reason to be there, I think,
Right.
is the easiest way to, like, pare it down. You don't want to be the guy that's constantly trying to leave.
Yeah.
Because then if you succeed, you're not playing the game anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I have literally only one good example of this, and it wasn't at the beginning of it. It was 4 games in, and it was a character added later, and it was an accident. Jeffrey came in as an adventurer, then did his job, wanted to go home, and was physically dragged from doing that away by John.
Right.
And now he's in the party, but now he's playing as an adventurer, which is the important part, because if he just spent the whole time wanting to leave, he could have done that at certain points.
And again, this is new player advice.
No, yeah.
This is not... So, like, once again, everything in D&D can be done well. Every bad, edgy idea that you've ever thought of can be done well.
No, right. I would argue
it won't always get done.
But you probably won't do it well because you're just starting.
I would definitely argue that you need to go with an adventurer. The only reason it was pulled off was because it was 4 episodes in.
I don't even know. It just worked. I don't know how you guys are pulling off half the things you're doing in our game, actually. Normally, even just like the...
I know the answer, and this is good advice. Just do the things. Just always do a thing. Just pick a thing and then do it. DM's like, what are you going to do? Find a rock and look at the rock. It doesn't matter. Just do a thing.
Clerics and paladins get this nice, juicy god to help them out. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why are you doing this? My god told me to, and that's good enough. Yeah. Like, if you play Warlock, your patron might be pushing you to do something. But everybody needs to have a reason why. Yeah. I played a character once that was, he was a Warlock who, he was in his, like, mid-40s, and essentially, like, his midlife crisis, his wife died, he was completely unfit to be adventuring, but, like, just had this midlife crisis, struck a deal with an undying entity, and just took the decorative sword off his mantle, and was like, I've been sitting still for too long.
Nice.
Now the world is mine.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun.
And, like, So he sucked. He died. By the way.
I was actually going to say that would be a really hard character for me to play. I need clear direction in my characters because I tried doing like, ooh, I'll just adventure, and then the DM's like, all right, you're in a big open space. What do you do? I'm like, turns out I don't know how to adventure because I do a whole lot of nothing because I just don't think that way.
Yeah.
Like I have to have a motivation to get somewhere, to do something.
Keep bringing this example up, but DMs don't start your players in an open field with nothing around them. That's a bad idea.
Okay. So
Until it's done
there
perfectly.
was a situation where there was like, okay, I wasn't in a big open field. I was in like a big marketplace, and they're like, you're trying to find blank. And I'm like, I'm trying to find blank. And I have too many options is unhelpful.
Right.
Like, I need a direction.
It's like the open world games problem.
Like,
and this is a problem I have as a new player specifically.
Yeah.
I need a direction. So you need to pick an adventure with a direction, because I've too many times been in a situation where, like, one, I didn't give myself direction, so I have no idea what I'm doing. Or two, I wasn't in a good party setup that, like, I picked a character that's like, I sulk in a corner for 3 hours. It's like, okay, well.
I have good advice for
do
this
that.
on the DM side, but I think we'll be getting to that a little bit later.
Yeah. No.
Be everybody, like, if you have trouble coming up with a motivation on why you want to adventure, why we need to go into the mines and kill the dragon, like, be every DM's favorite little good boy. The lawful good paladin. The lawful good paladin literally has mechanics to keep you adventuring written in. It's like, well, if I don't help the old lady who told me that there's 1 million rats in her basement, then I lose my cool holy powers.
My god will disown me.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, yes, old lady, I'll come eradicate the hordes of rats in your basement. Like, whatever it takes. Like, you need to, like, especially starting off, like, you need to have a reason your character is in the adventure, and then with that reason, that is how you can figure out how your character should be reacting to situations.
I will add this. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a reason that they are on the adventure. It could be a reason that they are with that group, which may be a different thing.
Right.
And leads to slightly different decisions, but still gives them a reason. You just need a reason to be there. It could be that you have a goal that aligns with the party goals, or it could be that you specifically want to be with that party. Like there are some characters that are there because another person is there, and they have a special relationship with that person. So it's like, I'm here because he's here and I'm following him.
I agree. If I could give advice on that specifically, I would always say, like, choose your party. Like, I know you want to play the most interesting character, but at the end of the day, choose your party as your team and as your friends, because, like, my character,
that is step 2.
Yeah, well, so my character in the Millennium Games, she's doing her own thing. She has her own storyline.
You guys specifically did not do this in the Millennium Games, and it still worked somehow.
Well, no, my character, well, that's because of the advice I'm about to give.
Okay.
She has her own storyline that is entirely unrelated to everyone else, and is going to find literally 0 answers by climbing into a cave with a dragon. This is not where her story goes.
Right.
I just know that.
Right.
But when one other person in your team decides, I need to go in that cave, you can try and convince them not to, but ultimately, don't stamp your foot and walk away unless it's really mandatory that your character just can't. But even still, I would argue, go with your team. Your team, to some degree, is there to help you as well, and they have their own stories that they need to get through. So, unless you're trying to write a different story and separate the party and stuff, pick your team. Like, just choose that the people you're playing with aren't your enemy, and go in a cave, even though it doesn't answer your own questions, right?
Right.
So
always play as a character that can play off of the other characters and plays well in the group. If you go to your session 0, always have a session 0. If you go to your session 0 and 2 of the party members want to play elves, don't play the dwarf that was tortured by elves as a child and swore vengeance against elven kind. Just don't do that. You're inviting infighting. And a little bit of infighting argumentation can be fun to roleplay. In your first sessions, you should try to be as harmonious with the rest of your players as possible.
Let the infighting be like personality clashes, because that stuff is fun. Don't let it be like you are actually mortal enemies with the other people in the group. That's a different thing.
Actually, factually try to attack people. Like, the only thing you should ever be trying to do against your fellow party members is restrain them.
Right.
Yeah.
Do not divine smite.
And you will.
Yes.
There's always the one guy you have to restrain. Unfortunately, sometimes he's a tree.
I'm gonna
You
steal.
can't very well.
Right.
And like, if you want to be the guy who's like just trying to steal, and like the party just gives you opportunity, like if you want to be the grifter, and this party is just the ultimate chance to see the world safely and grift away, do it. But when you get caught, understand there will be consequences. You know,
I'm about
at
to
least
say-
stay with the party. Don't ever play the character that is just like,
Don't be the contrarian.
yes.
Yeah, I'm about to say something controversial, and y'all, I think you're gonna disagree with me
Okay,
on a
bring it.
reasonable note.
Bring
but, if you find yourself constantly playing characters that hate the group, are racist, or increasingly sexually harassing other characters in the game constantly, reassess you and
As
the
a person,
things you
just-
enjoy.
As an actual human being.
Entirely, like not even involved in
Don't be
D&D.
that way anymore. Like if you're like, I want to play a racist, harassing elf character that hates these two groups
Halflings.
of races entirely, and I harass every woman that the DM introduces to this game, you should go home and you should figure out whatever is bothering you. Now, that's not saying that you can't play characters.
Well, that's just
that
life
are
advice. But how
slimy.
about Dungeons and Dragons advice?
Well, I think the big asterisk here for this whole podcast is you can do all of these things well, but
Sure.
you probably won't.
At least right
Right.
now. Right now, we're mostly going to stick
Right, yeah, this
with
is more
beginning.
about new stuff.
Eventually, we'll
Right.
get to the advanced lessons.
Well, yeah, no, I do think it'd be fun to explore, like, how do you do that in a good way?
yeah.
But that's not this
Break it.
episode. That pops out all the
probably.
time. You just stick
Oh.
it back in there.
Okay.
But definitely
yeah.
want to make sure that, like, if, like, the best way to do this, and DMs, if you're listening out there, tell everybody that they are part of an organization to begin with.
Right.
I
Yeah.
once ran a game that ran for years where I just started concept of all of you are in a circus.
Mm,
So everybody off the go get knew each other's characters in character wise and were working with each other for like a year in this garbage circus.
Yeah.
And like after 5 sessions, the circus aspect disappeared and they were just now adventurers.
Right.
And they weren't going to leave each other behind because they had already had bonds as characters.
That startup phase actually is something that trips people up a lot when they first start, and honestly the easiest way to get around that is just make characters that already kind of know each other. Like don't meet each other in the first session, because you don't
Right.
really have to, and it just makes it hard. Again, you guys just circumvented that somehow in the Millennium games.
Like, the
You
very
started as characters
classic-
that didn't know each other at all and somehow organically stayed as a group. But a
That's-
lot of times that produces a lot of problems.
Also, go watch the Millennium Games.
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
But no, okay. So I've never been a DM, but as a player, I also really strongly agree with this, because one of my first major games was actually Altered Egos,
Yeah,
which is like 7 people playing,
it was a lot.
and none of us know each other,
Right.
and it was really hard because I think one of the first things, and so Ian did this great thing where we all had to like do a Skype test run.
Yeah,
But
that's right. I forgot about
passed out over the phone, and so I was not involved.
that. You
so
you fell asleep.
so
hard.
I played in person
Good
the
job.
first time, and we were all sitting in like the back of a cart or something, and the DM's like, so you're all sitting in the back of a cart, and I'm
Right.
looking at 7 people, and I'm like, what the fuck do? I don't know how to play this game or talk to people. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about anyone, so I just assess how they look on the outside and decide who I do and don't like.
Yeah,
And it was just really difficult.
yeah.
Like,
You get nothing to
too
go
many
off of, right?
options is way too hard when
Yeah.
you're first starting out.
You're right.
You need a little bit of railroading. I know that's like a big no-no to some degree.
This is I've got to get. I have a great point once we get to it.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for the DM side of
Sure,
things.
sure.
Oh, I
But
thought
yeah, I
we were
think
on the
you're
DM
right.
I mean,
side
we
of
we
things.
can jump back and
Well-
forth
Oh,
if
I
you
thought
want
that's what
to.
you
I
were,
was just
that's what you were
saying.
talking about.
I was
So
saying like
I-
the.
I think you're actually right.
Yeah.
I think so I know like people try to avoid the railroading thing, which is usually the problem of like you just. I think. It's actually pretty simple. Railroading is giving people only one option. That's what railroading is. It's you give people, here's what you do next, and then
Right.
they just have to do it. If you make it completely open, it's also a problem because people don't know what to do. The best way to give people agency is just present a choice.
Yeah.
And this is also what we were talking, just leading into the way, like present opportunities for roleplay. give them a choice that they have to make in character. So it's not about what would you do in this situation, but what is your character going to do when presented with option A and option B?
Right.
Is he going to pick one of those? Is he going to try to find a third option? And no matter which one you pick, that's interesting, and that's character development.
Yeah,
that's how actual stories work.
I think railroading is a word that gets a lot of bad connotation. I think railroading can be done very well. All rails just lead to the same thing. You don't know that. And railroads, you can pick which switch you want to go on.
Isn't railroading just video games?
Yes, but
okay.
what
that's all I can do.
I dislike is something I've coined a term, like, railroads are fine. I get to make choices on the journey, but we end up in the same destination.
Right.
And that could be fine. But what is not fun is and I coined this term when I was running an RP guild, is what I called jungle cruising.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 there with that shoe throw.
Oh, thank you.
Jungle Cruise at Disney World is a ride where you are on a track and it looks like you get to interact with things, but you don't actually get to interact with anything. Everything is prefabbed, and you don't actually get to interact. That's bad. That's called cutscenes.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. I want to be able to walk up to the very evil-looking politician and just try to punch him in the middle of his assembly. Bad things are going to happen, but I have the option to.
Right.
Like, I can start walking up and the DM can be like, oh, well, there's too many cards and you can't get much further. But hey, at least I tried, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I mean. Like create choices. So like even if you're DMing, like this is going to sound like really hard set rules. I'm not saying you have to follow these rules, but you could follow these rules and it would work out fine. If in every single scenario you give your players exactly 2 choices, they will pick one of them, which would be interesting. Or they will do what players do, and they will come up with something that you didn't even think of, and do that instead. So you really like it's almost like, like you really got to try to limit players. And if you're at the point where you're basically don't say no, I think that's the biggest thing. You don't want to say no to the things the players want to do, but you also don't want to tell them do whatever you want, because that's also an issue, just the other direction. You want to hold out a plate and say, pick one of these options, and then say yes to anything they pick, even if what they pick is
eating the plate.
Or I want that speck of dust on the floor. You still say, okay, yes, you can do that.
Wow.
And that is, yes, that's all very good advice. And speaking of railroads, we have gotten a little sidetracked, but this is okay.
I was about to say, can someone lead me back to
this was
the normal.
This was my answer to how do you provide role-playing scenarios for players. I think because when you're, from a writer's perspective, if you're writing characters, the way that you develop a character is you give them choices, and those choices that they make define who they are. So you want to do the same thing for your players.
Fair enough.
Well said.
I do agree with that entirely. And now the typical, like, it's a dark and stormy night at the tavern, and the tavern gets attacked, and only the PCs are the ones brave enough to fight back. That is like the cookie cutter start an adventure scenario.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks for multiple reasons, but the number one reason is that your team, your party has no cohesion. Everybody's just met, and like the idea is like trial by combat. These people fought with you in this random bar attack. And that's sort of cool. And I've used this trope many times myself. It doesn't mean I'm right. Like, I think that it was way easier when I was like, hey, when you guys are making your characters, you guys are all members of a circus. And that's why I had a rogue that could juggle, and like a cleric that was constantly trying to like con people into buying this fake salve and like all this great like carny stuff.
That's
and
a good idea.
it was a great start to their character. And as the adventure went on, they became the heroes the land always needed them to be.
Alternatively, Kyle made us all fight each other at the very beginning of
I did do
our
that.
game.
That was fun.
Which honestly, I wouldn't recommend it for beginners because it set the tensions really high. And how are we supposed to like each other after we just murdered everyone?
Actually, I would love to explore Millennium Games just as an example of all the things you're not supposed to do, but somehow they still worked.
That's the second working title.
Yeah.
Is all the things you're not supposed to do, but somehow they still work. But yeah, no, well, there's a lot to learn from the things you shouldn't do, right? Like, there's a lot to take away from, like, we did this, don't.
Yeah. But I think it's also interesting that we did this and it worked, and here's why.
Okay, but
here's why it probably won't in most cases.
First answer is because we aren't all brand new players.
You were all brand new players. I selected you because you were brand new players. It was you, your brother, Matt, and John.
That's true.
You played the most out of any of those people.
You're right. Then this goes back to the first podcast we did, which is play with people you're really comfortable with.
This is true.
That's the only reason that
callback
we
to
succeeded.
episode 1.
I will actually say I think that is actually legitimately why it all worked, is because that group of people is are great to play. They're great to play with because they are all okay with just rolling with what happens, basically.
Right.
I would say for party cohesion, like, even if you can't get all the party like in on something, like you're all sailors that just sailed in or something like that, like at least get with one other party member,
right? And
be like, hey, do you want to play brothers? Do you want to play characters that know each other? And I'm currently playing in a campaign where me and another one of the player characters are like rival lab techs for different competing guilds, and so we know each other professionally.
Okay.
And we're constantly like bantering at each other.
That's fun. Yeah.
As we're both like, he's a wizard, I'm a sorcerer. And so like whenever he misses a spell or has a spell do minimal damage, I'm just like, oh, is that what they teach you over there at the Simic lab? Let me show you how a real Izzet engineer does things, you know?
I may try to get with somebody on your campaign actually and try to work out like a previous relationship or something.
Yeah.
I've never done that before. It might be nice.
And like the classic...
what is the name of yours again?
Kilnspark.
Kilnspark, yeah.
Oh, okay,
I played a Curse of Strahd campaign that accidentally became Maurice and his 3 dwarven dads. Where I played an elf noble. In Curse of Strahd, you get like whisked off of a trade caravan into like this terrifying horror world.
Oh.
Like your whole caravan like just disappears off the face of the earth and you're somewhere else now.
Okay.
So that's how you're set up as a party. And all the other players met beforehand, and they all decided to be various dwarven people that were all related.
Right, okay.
And I wrote a half-elf noble wizard to be like the fish out of water character, reluctant hero type, and then it was amazing. It was the chemistry was amazing, and they were all just like, oh, cheat up, Maurice. Like, next time you'll get them. And just like, anytime I failed, they're just like, oh, but it's all fine. You're not a dwarf. We understand. And just like, every time my character was upset, it was just Maurice and his 3 dwarven dads.
All right, so this inspired me in a different direction.
Okay.
Which is more advice for players starting out. In your group, your DM is part of it. And when I say don't hate all of the players in your group, I also mean the DM.
Yeah.
Like, you ran with that because you can, but don't make your DM's life hell by being an asshat the whole time. Like, if your DM's unhappy and miserable, then that's
I wasn't the DM, I was a player.
Oh!
I was playing. Maurice was my character.
Oh. Okay, but even still, the point is, like, don't do it. Like, don't kill all their characters. Don't attack everything they do. Like, don't make it so that your job is to make his playing miserable and unhappy. Because then it's just not...
As a DM, define what kind of campaign you're playing really clearly when you're starting, too.
With that session 0. Remember, session 0.
But it's like, I can't... DMs work really hard on the characters they create and the stories that they're telling. Yeah. And if your whole goal is to just, like, fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to make a true... chaotic evil character, and so their goal is to just murder every person they interact with. Stop.
Yeah.
Get some help.
Yeah. But also
it is campaign specific though, right? Because it's
right.
Like playing Alter Egos with Ian playing, you know what kind of game you're playing. You're gonna play a weird meta superhero comic book as a game.
Exactly.
If you're playing with me, I started by telling you guys, make the weirdest freaking characters you possibly can.
You did say
because that's what this campaign is going to be.
That's true.
And I have kept up with that the entire time.
That has been accurate.
So like set the vibe and the tone and like the seriousness of the campaign to start with, like make it clear what people should do and work with the players to make a character that fits that setting.
On that same note, if you are a DM, and world building's important, and I love world building as a DM, but like we were setting up in our session 0, and Kyle decided that his character is from Dragonborn Amish.
Yeah.
There were no Dragonborn Amish in my world before that got mentioned. But when Kyle said, I want to be from a group of Dragonborn that are Amish, I said, yes,
Yeah.
there are now a sect of Amish Dragonborn, and if you think that won't come up again, you're crazy.
This is actually how I built the entire world for their game.
Right.
Because
Oh.
well, you know how you guys keep running into all these tentacle monsters?
Yeah.
You can thank Thomas for that.
I bet we
That
can.
wasn't even like on his character sheet. He just sent me a picture. He was playing a gargoyle and he was like, I want to look like this. And he sent me a picture of a gargoyle with a Cthulhu face. And I was like, why would someone build a gargoyle with a Cthulhu face if they weren't making a statue of something that actually existed?
Oh, thanks, Thomas. You're a piece of garbage.
So the reason that you've been fighting all of these creatures is because Thomas decided he wanted a Cthulhu face, and I
Wow.
had to make that make sense.
Awesome.
There was a great moment in one of my campaigns where they were interacting with some members of a mob, gangster type, unsavory types, and our party rogue stepped up with his high bluff check and was like, hey, Uncle Louis sent us. And also, whenever people decide to make social checks, I'll always make them say something.
Oh yeah,
Always. That should have been
Right.
last
Now, you don't
episode.
just get to
but-
roll diplomacy.
Yeah.
You have to be diplomatic first,
Yes.
and then you can roll diplomacy.
And your role might not matter if you like give the canceling the apocalypse speech from Pacific Rim, you know. But he stands up and he just goes like, Uncle Louis sent us, and rolls a nat 20. And so now there's an Uncle Louis that exists, and he's high up in the mob.
Yeah.
And since then, every one of my campaigns has had some member of a criminal underground named Uncle Louis.
Oh my god.
And like constantly just like suddenly they get attacked by like brigands in the wilderness, and just like compliments to Uncle Louis, and just like, of course it is.
I
Of
think
course
that's
it
awesome.
is.
Pretty great.
I guess I was thinking of like characters that like you want to make a chaotic evil rogue character, right? And their profession was a assassin beforehand.
I mean, you can
Right?
make a like rogue assassin character who is still able to coalesce with the rest of your party, and
Right.
not just be like, I'm assassinate all these people in their sleep. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't play that character.
Right, because like if the DM introduced a nice friendly lady to your group, and she says, "Hi, welcome to the town," and gives you all gifts, and you're like, "I'm gonna roll sense motive," and you realize she's fine, and then you stab her. Don't be that way. Like there's occasionally like room for flavor for that kind of stuff. But if you take things away
If
from
you
your party when
Tell
you
your
make,
DM you want to play the evil campaign if you want to
Yeah.
play the evil campaign.
Right.
right, like
Do
give
not
people a
just try to
chance.
surprise I was a villain. Also,
Oh, don't try to
don't-
surprise the DM.
don't surprise anybody.
The DM is
Let me
surprised
tell you.
from my experience already.
Hidden character things, like even if you tell your DM, they're probably a bad idea, especially starting off. Because
Actually,
it's
starting
only
off is
gonna
probably
make
not great,
it's
yeah.
gonna make people feel bad. Like
This is yet another thing that
when-
we did, but I think if starting
Yeah.
off it is probably
What
a
is
bad
the
practice.
advice?
when you're just like,
Oh,
oh,
don't-
I'm just an unassuming like rogue, and then
Oh.
like 30 sessions later, you're just like, just kidding. I'm a cleric for Tiamat, and I'm gonna kill you all now, and just heel turn.
Right.
Like, don't do that.
No.
You're
I
not.
think the
It's
general
not
advice with this is,
special.
like just like keep it simple on your first time. You will have a lot of fun just
Oh,
making
yeah.
decisions as a character. You don't necessarily have to add in all of these twists and turns before you get started. It kind of
Right.
feels like you should when you're making the character, but you'd be surprised how far you can take a really simple character. I think actually a really great example is in Critical Role there is Grog the Barbarian.
Yeah.
He is exactly what he sounds like. He's
Yep.
the best goddamn character.
in Critical
He's
Role, yeah.
so great in that show.
That's amazing.
Another thing here is like just like in combat, your wizard will excel at doing certain things. Your barbarian's going to excel at different things. Everybody contributes in combat.
Yeah.
Everyone contributes in RP and in social situations.
Right.
Do not just like, I mean, it's called party facing, and like it comes from this happening where just one person who has a ton of charisma stat just does all the RP for the party because everybody's focused on combat. Don't let that happen.
Right.
That's actually a bad thing. Like, your paladin, sure, they're going to help you. When you guys are in the temples and stuff like that, they're going to shine in roleplay there. They're going to be able to, like, call in favors from the temple. They're going to know a lot about the gods and make those religion checks and stuff. But when you're, like, trying to get information from the seedy underbelly of the world, your paladin is not going to, like, shine there roleplay-wise. Like, let your rogue step in. Let your rogue...
Right.
You know, feel out his contacts and, like, really, like, get deep and down into, like, the intrigue of the underworld, you know. Everybody shares the spotlight. It's collective storytelling. It's not about a main character. As much as 5th edition wants the paladin to be the main character. God, like, everybody complains about wizard in every system because wizard is overpowered. 5th edition paladin is the most anime protagonist you can ever play.
Yeah.
That's a side note.
Well,
but it's really important, I think, to not try to do all of the roleplay yourself.
Yeah.
Right. To sort of go off of that idea. As a player, it's frustrating when another player, like, takes away my opportunity to do something. If you're talking to someone and you roll perception and you decide for some reason that you're just going to kill this person, I don't know anything. I didn't even get to talk to that. I didn't get to do anything. Now I'm in a situation and where somebody's murdered and I didn't even get to try. Like, they're, like, in situations, I think it's just fair to, like, let everybody make a decision. And if your character is, I'm gonna do something stupid right now and everyone's gonna suffer the consequence, do it, like, twice and then chill. Because, like, there's other people in your game that are not necessarily interested in playing your game.
Right.
Speaking of that,
I would love to do a like how to play I think how to play a chaotic character is going to be a good one at some
we
point.
could do that for the next one, yeah.
I will be making a video on how you don't need to sexually harass your DM and all their characters.
Please.
That will be in a video.
Has this happened a lot around you? Because have I just not noticed? Or...
Yeah. Are you kidding me? It's always like it's such a thing where, like, there is a character that the DM creates, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody's over there like, I'm gonna go
DM characters or something. We'll definitely talk about their.
Yeah. Then one of the people is like, I'm gonna go flirt with that character, right? And then they go up and they say something weird and harassy, and then the DM has to be like, I don't want to do this. Like, the DM doesn't want.
Tried this in my games before.
I've actually been in a game.
That's true. In your games, I don't think they do that. But I've seen in other games, I've heard people talking about this, where everything their character does is a charisma check to see if that person's going to sleep with them. Seduce.
So
that's what
I've been in a game where I, like it was like pirate adventure, something, and I came in late. I was in the second session. So there was already an established story, and there was this NPC character who was the ship captain, and I came in as in Pathfinder there's Cavalier, which is like Paladin, but instead of the holy things, you devote yourself to one thing.
You also ride something usually.
You normally get to, yeah.
Defining feature.
So I devoted myself to her. So I was her Cavalier, and so I was like her bodyguard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how I joined the party. And, like, there was this one guy, and, like, I did not know these people. I knew one person. That's how I got invited to this game.
Right.
And, like, he was just, like, harassing the NPC always. And then, like, I was like, hey, like, stay off her, like, whatever. She's the queen of the sea. Don't touch her. I don't know. It was awkward for me as a person because I was like, this was my first time, like, anybody had just been like, and then, like, he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna grab her ass. And it's just like,
yeah.
No. And then, like, I attacked I ended up killing his character in game, and everybody else was like, this is fine, this is what you get. And, like, the guy was just, like, all a little upset, and he's like, oh, all right, well, I guess I'm dead. I guess I'll roll a character next week. And then, like, left and never came back. And I didn't feel too bad about that.
Right. That's the kind of person that
like,
needs to go home.
that you probably just, like, I'm like, I probably just don't want to play with that guy anymore.
Even on a smaller scale, what I'm talking about is, like, DM creates an NPC. Dude's like, I'm gonna roll to seduce.
That's funny.
And then DM makes another character. Character's like, I'm gonna roll to seduce. And then 10 characters later, because they picked charisma and they think they're handsome, hot shit, they're gonna roll to seduce. every damn character that the DM creates. Find something else to do. Just don't like.
But what if
anytime
they're playing Johnny Bravo?
I mean, like this was a point. I had like players just always searching. They searched everything for treasure.
Yeah.
Like everything for treasure. It's like barbarian encampment, and they like bust into this like tent that smells bad, and it's like filled with laundry, and they're like, I'm gonna search the laundry baskets. I'm like, you find jock straps. Like, what are you looking for here?
I don't think I ever look for treasure in games.
No, we're really bad about that. We're the worst looters, like, of all time.
But
you guys have so much crap that you don't even know what it does.
No.
Even the stuff you did find.
You're right. We should probably look into the bag full of shit that we have. No, but it's just like, anyway, point is, there will be a video in the future on why you're over seducing your DM and all of his characters.
Another
and how you should
thing
chill
about
out.
roleplay for the DM is that you need to make sure that there's time, and this is not hard to do. Make sure there's time for your players to interact with each other.
Yeah.
Like player-to-player interaction in character.
That's a good point.
Is like some of the best RP there is, because first off, it's just the DM can step back, and it can literally be like, you guys are at your campfire before going to bed. Do whatever you want to do before going to bed and interact with each other. And then the DM walks off to like get another soda or like starts frantically writing the next day.
Right.
Just give the players time for them to do that, and amazing things will happen.
Yeah.
I had my brother in a campaign. It was his first ever campaign. He decided to play a monk, a dragonborn monk named Jake Long.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And he decided he wanted to play chaotic, which I didn't think it was going to happen.
Like the character, Jake Long. Okay.
Yeah. He didn't make himself after. It was just the name.
That's great.
And he decided to like make himself indifferent to the party for some reason. Like the party was there and he was helping the party. And like it was just like they're like, hey, Jake, you've been great. And he just like would turn around and be like, I know I am. And just like he was that character. And there was like a point where it's like somebody has to go on this side mission and be the distraction. And like there was an NPC to do it, but they killed the NPC that was supposed to do that. So now one of them had to do this. And so he was like, I'll do it. And it was a very brave thing. And like one of the clerics went up and he was like, we fight a lot, but I always consider you part of family. Aww. And he's like, turns to him and goes, who are you? Oh. And then walks away.
Oh my
and
God.
It was just like, perfect. Don't try to emulate that your first try. It is definitely difficult to do. I'm amazed my brother did all that he did. And then like eventually like the cleric revives him and he like gets up, brushes himself off, and he just like looks back and goes, thanks, stick guy. Like then the cleric who uses a quarterstaff, thus known as stick guy in the Jake Long verse.
Oh my God.
That was like wonderful. And like those moments where you let the party interact with each other in character, that's going to be some of the best role play ever.
Yeah.
Right. So this also happened in the Millennium Games. And I bought something in our game. And it was great. And it was amazing. And I'm
it
happy.
Caltrops?
No, it was a wooden dragon.
Oh, yeah.
It was
T-Rex.
T-Rex. I bought myself a little wooden T-Rex thing. And John just comes over, grabs it, and crushes it in his hand.
What?
And we're still not friends in-game. And we'll never be friends in-game. And, like, at the same... Okay, so that being said, we are respectful players of each other.
Your characters are business associates.
Correct.
Yeah.
That I have thought about almost attacking.
But he's not getting invited to the
many
wedding.
Times. No, literally, never want to see his face again as soon as I don't have to. In character.
Yeah.
This dude sucks.
In character.
This dude sucks to my character. He is so mean. And it's great because we still, like, we have fun party dynamic anyway. But, like, I'm just saying, if I attacked him, I would kill him, and that's the only reason I haven't.
Wow, that's an advanced lesson called character bleed, and we'll get to character bleed in a future episode.
John,
I can go on forever about character bleed.
I just need John to know that I was.
It's a danger. Yeah, we're getting there. Our last tip for our new GMs and DMs out there is just in really getting the ball rolling for RP.
Mm-hmm.
You are the leader of the group.
Yeah.
Not the party. You're not the leader of the party. You're not the leader of the PCs. You are the leader of the entire game. The game doesn't happen without you. Don't let it go to your head.
Yeah.
But it starts with you. And if you start role-playing, if you start doing funny voices for all the different townsfolk, if you start, like, talking to them in character and, like, starting doing it's the annoying DM thing, but I think it's great, which is responding to everything that they said like they said it in character.
Right.
Which is an extreme measure. Don't go straight to that.
I've done it occasionally, but
yeah.
It's a good way to poke people into
it
action.
It is. Like, especially if they're just like they just say something completely not game related, and they're like, "Oh man, have you seen this cool like article or whatever?" And like, "Excuse me, what is the article? I've got a dragon," and just like, you know, it's a little poke at them.
Yeah.
It's not malicious. You know, if you get the ball rolling, everyone will follow suit.
Actually, I think it's even more than that. I think DMs set the entire tone of the game.
Right.
Because, like, my brother has played in multiple games, and, I mean, I've heard other people complain about this kind of thing, but just, like, DMs that just don't let you do things. Like, they either control what you need to do, or want to control where the story goes. But some of the worst, like, horror stories I've heard from people playing D&D is that their DM was bad. Like, their DM didn't let them do things, didn't want them to do things, had a story that they wanted to tell, like, you know, and that's, you're gonna set, you can set the tone.
Fun fact, the DM story is always gonna get told.
Right.
If you do it well, it gets told, and you make the players think that they accidentally stumbled into it. Yeah.
Right, and like, you decide if the characters know each other, where they get to come from. You get to control a lot of things at the beginning, but then let them play their game.
I think it's
when they get there.
more on the, like, just if you're the DM going, "Oh great, you hit. That's how much roll for damage, please?"
Yeah, that's
like if you sorry, what was your 19 versus AC? Oh no, you missed. Next.
Yeah.
Like, don't, like, then nobody's going to want to role play.
Right.
You know. Right. Once again, if you're like you can feel the metal dent as your axe crushes the chest plate of your foe.
Yeah.
And you manage to get through for 8 points of bludgeoning damage as the blood sprays on your face, fueling your rage.
Yeah.
Like, you know, your arrow sails, but just misses at the last minute. Like,
I definitely think that DMs have to set the tone that way. I would probably never be in character if you weren't also.
Right.
Like, even though there are other players, I 90% of the time have to interact with a DM character anyway.
Yeah.
Like, we're all together, but they're usually doing decisions outwardly in a sort of, like, metagaming way, I guess. But I know what they're doing because they're saying it out loud, and I don't have to react to everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to respond to someone, I'm normally responding to a DM character.
Right.
And the different characters are what sets the world and what set, like, how I'm gonna talk to someone. Because there's a lot of times where I've gotten more into character just because you were a strong character.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, playing with the other group members is good, but sometimes we end up leaving character. Just a little bit, because we're all talking to each other.
Right.
And that's fine. You can break character every now and then, but, like, trying to stay in character. And, like, with the DM, like, you can make the simplest thing, such as, like, all you have to do is go here and get the information. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And that could be easily done in, like, 2 words. Like, oh, you go to the library, you got the information. But you can make actual factual content if that librarian is just, man, really annoying to deal with. And she, like, keeps asking you to speak up and, like, doesn't understand, like, and if she's an ordeal. Like, there are combats and there are puzzles, but man, your players are going to remember having to, like, drag the information of where this book of maps is from this old crotchety librarian woman.
Yeah.
Like, far more than they're going to remember that time that they hit the goblin on the, like, docks.
Right.
Like, that's going to be very memorable to your players, and that's I mean, not that you're trying to pad out time, but like that is an encounter in itself. Like this social encounter, and just like anytime you come up and you're like, "Madam, we're looking for shh." Oh God. Anyways, yes.
Are you worried that you shush so loud?
Yeah. like the librarian keeps shushing you, and then the players realize they need to whisper. They need to whisper at the librarian lady. And then after that, she's like, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. And then you got to whisper louder. And that's the puzzle. We've made a puzzle out of getting a book from the library because we're role-playing now.
This is really good advice. Well, so what I am learning is don't be a DM first. Play the game.
It is. I would recommend playing the game first. Yeah. Get a feel for how the game runs before you start running.
Like you might go in being, I need to be a DM first. I'm the storyteller, and it's like no. You need to play a game first before you can jump into DMing, because it's everything the player does times like 10. It's all the things that players have to do plus a lot more. So even if you're great at some of the DMing side, you got to get good at the character side, because you're going to have way more characters than anyone else. All the time. I want to DM, but I have a lot of the concerns that I guess are like brought up in this, like, or I guess some of the concerns that are answered by some of the
listening to this show monthly, we're going to get you through those concerns and get you to a point where you can confidently DM a game.
That's what happens at the end of the year.
The end of the year, Allison is DMing the game.
Boom. Got one in mind.
But today's tips, let's wrap this up now. We've been on a few tangents, but I think they were good tangents. They were relevant. Yeah. So mostly for the players, on your first time out, you're going to want to make a character that wants to adventure. Remember, why am I risking my life? Ask your character that question and answer in character. Also, make a character that plays well with the rest of the party. Don't be the contrarian. Don't be the, like, elf-hating in a world of, like, all elf player characters. Mm-hmm. And then for your DM, make sure you give ample opportunity to interact with the world that isn't combat.
Yeah. And
give time for the players to talk with themselves in character, and be sure that you are the trendsetter of the game. Yeah. So if you are not role-playing, most likely nobody is role-playing. And a bad DM not bad, there's no bad DMs, just non-role-playing DMs.
There's probably bad DMs.
If you're not role-playing, then like the few players you have that are, they're going to lose interest in role-playing. They're going to feel awkward because they're not getting the reciprocation.
Yeah.
So I think those are the big tips. Always be role-playing when you can. Don't be afraid of it. Never be afraid of role-playing. We're here to help you with that. Play with your friends. That's the big takeaway always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything y'all need to add to that?
No, I think we covered that one pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Sounds good. Well, this has been Ricky.
It's been Ricky.
And Ricky.
And Ricky. And I've been facing the party.